Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is going to visit Canada later this week. CBC has learned that he will address Parliament on Friday. Now, last hour, Zelenskyy made a plea to world leaders at the UN General Assembly. He reiterated his calls for urgent action against Russia, who he says is committing genocide by kidnapping Ukrainian children.
Russia is weaponizing nuclear energy. Not only it is spreading its unreliable nuclear power plant construction technologies, but it is also turning other countries' power plants into real dirty bombs. Look, please, what Russia did to our Zaporizhzhia power plant. Shelled it, occupied it, and now blackmails others with radiation leaks. Is there any sense to reduce nuclear weapons when Russia is weaponizing nuclear power plants? Scary question. The global security architecture offers no response or protection against such a treacherous radiation threat.
Zelenskyy is just one of the world leaders in New York for the General Assembly, but his speech, one of the most highly anticipated. Our Chris Reyes is at the UN headquarters, joins us now live. Chris, tell us more about Zelensky's speech and the reaction to it.
Hi, Hannah. Well, in addition to what we just heard from President Zelenskyy about Russia weaponizing nuclear energy, he went on to list other examples of Russian actions in his country that shouldn't only be condemned by the United Nations, but should be punished. He talked about Russia pulling out of the Black Sea grain deal, holding on to nuclear weapons at the same time as terrorizing other nations. He talked about Russia weaponizing hatred. And then he also went on to paint a picture of what daily life is like in his country. He talked about the families that have been suffering for 2 years now, as well as the villages that have been flattened by Russia's bombs and Russia's drones. He said, we have to stop this. And then he sort of zoomed out a little bit, Hannah, and said that this isn't just about Ukraine. He said that if this can happen to his country, it means that the security of every sovereign state, who are all members of the United Nations, their security is at risk as well. He also talked about the Ukrainian peace formula, which he introduced at the UNGA last year. He said he's going to be presenting that in great detail to the Security Council tomorrow, and that peace formula includes items like securing Ukraine's future, punishing war crimes. Now, we've already heard from Minister Lavrov that he believes that this isn't a peace formula, but a strategy to defeat Russia. So you can just get a sense of what kind of reaction you're going to get at the Security Council tomorrow, where Russia holds a permanent seat. And then I should also mention that Minister Lavrov, who is the highest ranking Russian official here, he wasn't in the chamber during Zelensky's speech.
Chris, we also heard from U.S. President Joe Biden, among others. What else have you been hearing from the various leaders?
That's right. So Biden's big theme was that the United States is fully committed, at least under his administration, to not only the United Nations, but the other multilateral institutions that supports it. The institutions like the World Bank, which lends to developing nations, the IMF, those organizations that he said needs to be strengthened in order to solve the world's biggest challenges. Have a listen to a snippet of his speech.
Will we find within ourselves the courage to do what must be done, to preserve the planet, to protect human dignity, to provide opportunity for people everywhere, and to defend the tenets of the United Nations? We must, and we will. The road ahead is long and difficult, but if we persevere, and prevail, if we keep the faith in ourselves and show what's possible, let's do this work together.
And Hannah, before those speeches started, it was UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres who really opened today's meeting, and he essentially sets the tone for every UNGA. And today he minced no words in painting a very grim reality, one full of not only some of the biggest challenges the world has ever faced, but also these sort of deteriorating institutions. He said that these institutions were created after the Second World War, and the world has changed very much since then, and that they need to be reformed in order to meet problems. Have a listen to what he said.
Excellencies, the United Nations was created precisely for moments like these, moments of maximum danger and minimum agreement. We can and must use our tools in flexible and creative ways. Let us be determined to heal divisions and forge peace, determined to uphold the dignity and worth of every person, determined to realize the Sustainable Development Goals and effectively leave no one behind.
And then, you know, Hannah, the leaders here making headlines as much as the leaders who are not here. And it's worth noting that U.S. President Joe Biden is the only country represented out of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council: China, France, UK, Russia. They're not here with their top leaders. And that's worth mentioning because tomorrow, at discussion, no doubt, will be ending the war in Ukraine, and leaders of those leaders of 4 out of the 5 permanent members are not there to hear what Zelenskyy has to say.